Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my booktube channel, and welcome to another Poetry Thursday. At the time you're seeing this, tomorrow is going to be Halloween, and I wanted to share with you just that quintessential Halloween poem. Couldn't resist, also because I'm in Baltimore, where Edgar Allan Poe spent his final years and wrote a lot of his famous works. This one we can't claim. This was a Philly poem, but still, this is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book's surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore, merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled, this ungainly fowl, to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore." But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, never more. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore. Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door, quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. This poem reads like a magic spell. I think the rhythm of it is what enchanted me so much about it when I first read it, and I think I read this as a kid. I think this is a great introduction to poetry too. If you're looking into getting started reading poetry, but you don't really know where to begin, because this is a narrative poem, there's not a ton of secret messaging or obtuse language or things like that in it. It is telling a story. It is telling us a plot of a person who is depressed because he misses this woman, Lenore, and this raven shows up and is giving him just this sort of cryptic nevermore that he says over and over and over again. And in his reactions to what this raven is saying reveals so much to us about his own character and his own thought process and what he's feeling. I think this is a really great poem. In our local newspaper, there was an author that wrote an article covering our Edgar Allan Poe Festival that happens here every year. And I thought it was somewhat of a misguided argument, really, because the author was trying to argue that Edgar Allan Poe didn't really have any cultural relevancy anymore, and he was just kind of saying, aren't people just showing up and participating in this festival for the vibes, basically, and not because they actually like to read Poe? One of the things that really encouraged me was that a lot of the people leaving comments below that article on the website actually were talking about how Edgar Allan Poe is such a great poet now, just as much as he ever was for his popularity and, his accessibility. Not that I'm trying to say the poems are overly simple or unsophisticated, but they're very approachable for people who are beginners or experienced poetry readers alike. Again, one of the things I love most in poetry is reading something out loud that feels good to say in your mouth. It's musical, it's rhythmical, it's magical, it's incantatory. The Raven is just such a great classic example of that. And there's a reason that Poe is one of our sort of progenitors of the American literary canon. There's a reason he is one of the most widely read American authors outside of the United States, at least last time I checked. And we keep coming back to these stories and poems that he writes, not just because of the like body work that they do, the way it kind of makes you feel that creeping dread or the prickle of a cold sweat on the back of your neck, but also because there's such a depth and a complexity to it. It's a little bit like when you drink a nice, rich, complex coffee and you have your initial reaction to the taste, but then the taste develops in your mouth and it lingers, and you kind of think a little as you're surprised by the way that it's evolved or the way that your experience of it has changed over time. That's one of the things I really love so much about reading Poe, is that you get on the one level the sort of creepy, scary, spooky goth type things, but then when you sit and think about it or sit and reread, go over and over lines, it really just gets to kind of blossom and grow, maybe into a dark poisonous flower like a hellebore. Don't eat those, by the way, very, very bad for you. But nonetheless, like, we just get to watch this evolve, and we evolve with it. So that's why Edgar Allan Poe is still relevant to me, at least. I could go on and on about how much I love this author. I could tell you about how I spent all of my like final years of undergrad going into graduate school working on papers about Poe's detective fiction. I could tell you about how one of my favorite albums is the Alan Parsons Project, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, which is a Poe concept album. Go listen to it if you haven't already. It is just so great, and the first track on the album is actually their take on the poem Nevermore, or the Raven, rather. I could tell you about how every Halloween my husband and I like to watch the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror that has the Raven in it, because that's his favorite show from his childhood, and he was delighted to introduce me to it. But to be perfectly honest, just go read it yourself. Pick it up this Halloween, sit with it, savor it, read it out loud, read it fast, read it slow. Notice where you enjoy the words tripping over your tongue and over your mouth. And yeah, as always, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you next week for another Poetry Thursday. Bye!